You know, you hear about a war happening thousands of miles away, or a blocked shipping lane over in the Middle East, and it all feels so distant, right? But what if I told you that those exact events could directly threaten your company's survival, even right here in Brazil? Today, that's what we're going to do. We're connecting the dots between that global chaos and your business strategy. So, here's how we'll break it down. First, we'll talk about this fragile, super connected world we're all living in. Then, we'll dive into a couple of specific global conflicts and trace their impact all the way down to a Brazilian tech company called Helppi. From there, we'll look at a really powerful tool, OKRs, and the key person who makes it all work. And we'll finish up with a kind of survival manual that you can use for your own business. All right, let's set the stage. That feeling you might have that things are just more unpredictable than ever, well, it's not just in your head. The whole nature of risk has changed. See, for years, we used to talk about living in a VUCA world. That's volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. But it was a system you could still, analyze and plan for. We're past that now. We're in what's called a Bonnie world. It's brittle, meaning systems can just shatter without warning. It's anxious. It's nonlinear. And honestly, a lot of the time, it's just incomprehensible. You can't just plan for a Bonnie world. You have to build resilience against it. This quote, it just perfectly illustrates how connected everything is now. It's like the economic butterfly effect, and it's not some abstract theory. A single problem on the other side of the planet can have a real, tangible impact on what people here in Brazil are paying for food. Okay, so let's move from the abstract to the real world. How do these geopolitical hotspots actually create those ripple effects we're talking about? Let's walk through two really powerful scenarios. First, just imagine an expanded conflict in Europe. And we're not just talking about tanks and soldiers, but also hybrid attacks, sabotage against really critical infrastructure. The global impact would be immediate. You'd have persistent energy inflation, for sure, but here's the part that's really scary. The risk to things like the submarine internet cables that connect the entire world. An attack on those could disrupt global finance and data, basically grinding everything to a halt. And of course, a recession in a market as big as Europe would absolutely drag down global growth. And for Brazil, the consequences are super direct. Any hope for that Mercosul-EU trade deal? Probably gone, shelved indefinitely. The cost of all the industrial parts and tech we import from Europe would skyrocket. And, maybe most importantly, our agriculture sector, which is so dependent on imported fertilizers, would face insane price swings. That's a direct threat to our food production and our exports. Now for our second scenario. This is a major flashpoint with an even more direct inflationary punch. An escalation of conflict involving Iran and the world's most critical choke point for oil. Just look at this number. Up to a third of all the oil the entire planet consumes has to pass through this one single narrow strait. The amount of risk concentrated in this one spot is just staggering. If you control this strait, you basically have your hand on the throat of the global economy. So if this flow gets disrupted, analysts figure oil prices could jump by more than 50% almost overnight. And this isn't just an energy crisis, it becomes a manufacturing crisis. Major economies like China, the world's factory, rely on this oil. If China's factories start losing power, it means a global shortage of, well, everything, electronics, appliances, you name it. And in Brazil, we would feel it immediately at the pump. You'd see constant price hikes for gasoline and diesel, which would fuel inflation, our official IPCA. To fight that, the central bank would have no choice but to keep our base interest rate, the Selic, high. And that makes credit more expensive, stifles investment, and basically slams the brakes on our entire economy. Okay, so we've looked at the big macro picture. Now, let's zoom all the way in and see how this actually plays out at the micro level. We're going from global shockwaves right to the front door of a single Brazilian company. So how does all this chaos really hit a real business like Helppi? They're a tech platform that provides on-demand workers to other companies. They don't import oil or fertilizers. You might be thinking, why should they care? Well, because it's a chain reaction. It's a domino effect. The global conflict puts financial pressure on Helppi's corporate clients. Those clients react by cutting their budgets, and they always start with what they see as non-essential costs. All of a sudden, Helppi's big quarterly goal to land 10 new enterprise clients is completely dead in the water because those same potential clients are now freezing all new contracts. This isn't a distant problem anymore. It's a direct threat to their core strategy. So how does a company like Helppi fight back against something as huge as geopolitics? I mean, they can't stop a war, but they can change how they operate. They need an antidote to all this chaos. And that antidote is a management framework that's built for agility. And that framework is called OKRs, Objectives and Key Results. The idea is actually pretty simple. An objective is the big, ambitious, qualitative goal you want to achieve. The key results are the numbers, the quantitative metrics that prove you actually got there. It's the difference between saying we want to improve sales and saying we will increase new customer revenue by 15% this quarter. See the difference? And this is where it gets really powerful. Traditional goals are rigid, right? You set them once a year and they quickly get outdated. OKRs are agile. They work in these short quarterly cycles, which forces you to constantly reevaluate and adapt to whatever is changing in the world. In a banny world, being able to course correct like that isn't just a nice to have, it's a core survival skill. But look, a framework is just a tool. To really navigate the storm, you need a skilled navigator calling the shots. And this is where the role of an OKR coordinator becomes absolutely critical. First, the coordinator plays defense. When a crisis hits, their job is to create what we call radical focus. They make sure every single team is aligned on the handful of things that are absolutely essential for survival. And by forcing everyone to use data, they stop the company from making those panicked, impulsive decisions that can sink a business in rough waters. But they also play offense. The coordinator helps the company completely reposition its value. So Helppi stops being just a flexible staffing platform and becomes a strategic partner that helps clients survive the crisis. They prioritize innovation that solves the urgent pains their customers are feeling right now. And that is how you turn market-wide fear into company-specific growth. Now, these strategies aren't just for Helppi. Any business can build the reflexes it needs to survive and even thrive in this kind of uncertainty. So let's wrap this up with a practical survival manual for your own company. Here are 3 powerful tools you can put in your back pocket. First, a pestle analysis. It helps you map all those external forces, political, economic, social, all the way to legal. Second is something called the cone of futures, which is a technique to help you visualize and prepare for a bunch of possible futures, not just the one you hope for. And finally, risk mapping. This lets you identify and prioritize threats so you can focus your energy where it actually matters most. And all this brings us to our final question. You know, in the past, we built companies to last, like these solid fortresses that were designed to withstand a siege. But in this banny world of constant, unpredictable shocks, maybe the fortress is just the wrong model. Maybe the ultimate question for any leader today is this: is your company built to last, or is it built to change?